Hello and welcome to Unit 8, in which our project has reached the execution stage, the stage of translation proper. We have created our project in our CAT tool and imported all the relevant source files and language resources. We have completed our preparatory steps of extracting terms to compile a client-specific or project-specific terminology database. We have leveraged our translation memory against the source files during the pre-translation, and now we have a bilingual document, an XLIFF file, partially populated with exact match segments. Finally, we have adjusted our QA settings as per the project requirements. In this unit, we will be looking at methods for sharing project files with linguists, as well as learning more about translating those files inside the CAT tool editor window. During this stage, the project manager's role is to monitor and control the project to ensure its smooth running and to address any problems before they escalate. However, their next task is to send out the files to translators. There are three main options available: to send the single bilingual file, to zip together all the project-related files into a project package, or to create a project on a server-based version of the CAT tool to which they will provide access to their freelancers. Sending the single file, the bilingual XLIFF document, is an option in cases where there is only one file per linguist to translate. In this scenario, the project manager imports the source file into the CAT tool to create the bilingual XLIFF, and then completes the preparatory stages, including using the translation memory to pre-translate the XLIFF and locking any context match segments so that they can't be edited during translation. The project manager then zips and emails the XLIFF to the freelance linguist, who creates or attaches their own translation memory and terminology database before translating the file and emailing it back to the project manager. If the client has a glossary, then this may be included in the zipped folder, and the freelance linguist will import this into their own CAT tool. In this scenario, the use of an XLIFF file allows the data for translation to be shared across different programs, so that both the project manager and the freelance linguist can use a CAT tool of their own choosing. Using this approach, the project manager prepares and manages the files to ensure that they are sent out and received back in a timely manner, while the translator opens the XLIFF in their CAT tool and completes the translation, saving it as an XLIFF before returning it to the project manager. The translator has little in the way of technological work to do, as the project manager has already prepared the file for translation. This approach is best suited to smaller projects, namely those which contain only one file in total for localization, as producing and managing more of such individual files for a larger project would be time-consuming and potentially introduce a greater margin for error or mismanagement. Furthermore, with this approach, the project manager does not need to prepare a client-specific subset of the translation memory for the translator to use, as the pre-translation option allows context and exact matches to be automatically inserted into the XLIFF file before sending it to the linguist. Standalone CAT tools offer users the option of creating a project package. A project package can be created for each stage of the workflow. For example, one package would be created for the translation stage and another for the revision and review stage. The workflow still requires the project manager to complete the preparatory stage of importing the source files from reference materials, creating or attaching the translation memory, and performing the term extraction or extracting frequently occurring segments from the source file before creating the package. The package then contains all the files related to the project, such as source files, reference materials, translation memory, or a subset thereof, and term-based files. These linked resources are compiled into a zip folder, which must be processed using the same CAT tool as the one that initially created the package. So if a project manager uses SDL Trados Studio to create the package, then SDL Trados Studio should be used to process that package and extract the relevant files for translation. The linguist receives the package and imports it into the CAT tool, where it will be automatically unpacked. The linguist produces their own analysis report from the files before beginning the translation so that they can confirm a price for the work with the project manager. All of the files included in the package will be in a CAT tool specific format, so although the project package is essentially a zipped folder, the language resources will also be in a CAT tool specific format, as they have previously been imported into the tool by the project manager. Once the translation is finished, the linguist creates a return package from within the CAT tool and sends it back to the project manager. The return package usually contains only the translated file. The updated translation memory and term base are not returned with it. The translation memory must therefore be updated at a later stage by the project manager, once the translations have been approved and accepted by the client. This is a popular approach, frequently used in the localization process. It's best suited to projects which contain more than one source file, or projects where different reference files and/or language resources will be applied. It is a useful way of bundling together the project files and reducing the likelihood that linguists will encounter any technical issues associated with importing files individually. Issues may also arise when project managers and linguists both create their own projects inside the CAT tool, but each of them may use slightly different settings, which can introduce incompatibilities between their projects when transferring data from one user to another. The most common issue might relate to the use of a main language, such as Spanish, in the project compared to the use of a language variant, such as Spanish from Spain or Spanish from Mexico. Project packages can also store information relating to the project's source and target languages, so when the freelance linguist imports the package, these settings are automatically loaded for use. In the server-based environment, the workflow is similar to that of creating project packages. However, in this environment, many more tasks can be automated, particularly those relating to the allocation and receipt of files for translation or revision. The project manager creates the project inside the CAT tool, importing all the relevant files, before publishing the project to the server. Freelance linguists assigned to the project will then receive an email notification that there is work available for them to collect. The linguist logs on to the server and has the option to work directly in the server-based environment or to download the files so that they can work offline. With this approach, the CAT tool is similar to a translation management system, where multiple translators can work on files simultaneously in the online editor while updating a centralized server-based translation memory. There is no need to create multiple packages for each translator and each task, so the process of project management is smoother and more efficient. When translators work in the online editor, the project manager is also able to receive real-time updates on a team member's progress. When the translator completes their work, an automatically generated email is sent to the project manager, who can then log on to the server to reallocate work for the next stage of the project. Server-based environments are best suited to projects which involve a large number of freelance linguists, or in scenarios where there is an almost constant flow of translation work to be completed. Although the workflow is comparable to that of a translation management system, the main difference with this approach is that the server-based CAT tool does not generally include content management system integration or finance tools. Projects must still be created manually, and files must also be manually imported. However, automatic notifications of work for freelance linguists dramatically speeds up the flow of the project once it is underway. Some server-based environments may also include a chat feature, which allows the project manager to easily monitor and communicate with members of the team during the project. One of your tasks for this unit will be to investigate which options are available inside each of the suggested CAT tools for sending out files to linguists. You should investigate whether they are manual options, whether Project Manager must themselves send the file for translation and its accompanying resources by email, or whether the process is automated within the tool, whereby translators will receive a notification that translation work awaits them on the server. Once the files are received, the translator runs their own analysis to compare with that produced by the project manager, and then translation proper can begin. On opening the bilingual file for translation within the Translation Editor window, the segmented source text will be presented within a table layout. The translator enters their translation alongside the corresponding source segment. After entering the translation, they confirm the segment, usually by pressing Ctrl and Enter, which sends the source and target segments to the translation memory as a paired translation unit, before moving on to translate the next segment. A visual clue, such as a green tick, usually indicates that the translation unit has been confirmed, and the percentage number stored alongside the unit indicates the percentage match of the TM content with the source text segment. The editor window inside each tool shows the contents of the translation memory inside the translation results window, and terminology stored in the term base may also be visible in its own term base viewer window. In the screenshot, taken from SDL Trados Studio 2017, the translation memory and the term base windows appear separately, just above the open bilingual XLIFF file. Here, the translation results window offers tabbed viewing where different types of results such as whole segment matches and sub-segment or fragment matches can be viewed under the different tabs. MemoQ combines these windows, presenting them to the top right of the editor window, and using a color coding system to number matches and differentiate between those from different sources. In the screenshot, the first and second matches are marked red to indicate these have come from the translation memory. The blue match beneath it has come from the term base. The purple matches are a result of fragment assembly of sub-segment portions, and the orange matches have come from a machine translation concordance search. The CAT tool automatically inserts the top priority match, but the linguist can choose to use a different match from those presented where it is more appropriate to do so. Each translation unit stored in the memory is instantly available for reuse. CAT tools will automatically search for and reinsert the translation to identical segments further into the text in a type of instant automatic insertion known as auto-propagation. Therefore, even if a project starts from scratch and there is no TM available, using translation memory technology may prove worthwhile if the document to be translated contains a sufficient amount of internal repetitions or similarities. Internal repetitions are segments which appear in the source text more than once, yet have not been translated, and therefore they are not stored in the translation memory. While auto-propagation is an efficient way of handling these internal repetitions, each auto-propagated segment should still be carefully checked to ensure its appropriateness for the given context. Most CAT tools also include a feature for splitting and joining source text segments. This feature can be used to combine two or more source text segments into one target segment, or to deal with segmentation which may have gone awry. The editor window usually provides a comments feature so that linguists, project managers and revisers can communicate notes to each other. These notes can be appended to the relevant segment, and options are available in the standalone tools for defining a severity level. A visual clue to the presence of a comment might be that the segment in question is highlighted in a different color, as in SDL Trados Studio 2017. or it might be another symbol, such as the use of the golden speech bubble alongside the target segment in MemoQ 8.3. With a term base connected to the project, the translator will receive terminology suggestions to include in their translation. It's also possible for terms to be added to the existing term base while translating. Most CAT tools allow the option of highlighting terms and using an add term command to add terms on the fly, i.e. while translating the segment. Terminology can be inserted using a quick insert command, and the presence of a stored piece of terminology within a segment may be highlighted to draw the linguist's attention to it. This can then be inserted as a placeable. Often, the only difference between a segment to be translated and a segment stored in the translation memory database is the so-called variable elements. Variable elements include dates, figures, measurements, proper names, graphics, and in the case of tagged file formats, layout tags. These tags, highlighted here in red, are used by the CAT tool to preserve the original layout and formatting of the source file, so that it can be easily reproduced as a target file. The tags contain inline text which cannot be translated, for example, some HTML code which may appear within the segment. They need to be included in the target segment, and their absence from the segment will generate either a warning or an error message, the latter of which may prevent the target file from being exported correctly. QA settings within CAT tools can usually be adjusted to warn the translator when a tag is missing or broken, giving the translator the opportunity to rectify this before returning the translation to the project manager. Generally, you do not need to modify these variable elements. You can simply copy them into the target segment using the Insert Tag command button or keyboard shortcut, as shown in the screenshot, and if necessary, you may need to move them to a different position. For example, the tags, or the portion of text enclosed in curly brackets, is not to be translated. The CAT tool uses these tags to mark out the formatting associated with this word in the source text, namely that it appears in bold in the source, and should therefore also appear in bold in the target text. However, to translate this sentence into French, we see that there are two words to express the negative, not one, as in English, so the bold formatting may be applied differently in the target text. Some elements may require special treatment. While names of people, companies, products, etc. usually remain unchanged, dates or figures may have a different format in the target culture, and measures may have to be converted to and from the metric system. In some translation memory systems, the adjustment of variable elements to the requirements of the target culture can be automated before placing these elements into the correct position in the target segment. For this reason, such elements are known as placeables. Some translation memory applications treat new source segments that only differ from a segment in the TM database by a variable element as exact matches and automatically adjust the variable element. During translation, if no match is found in the translation memory, users can apply the so-called Concordance feature. With this feature, you can highlight a sentence fragment, a word sequence, phrase, etc., and look up all occurrences in the translation memory database, along with their translation equivalents. This enables you to quickly view the search string in different contexts, together with its translations, which may not always be the same. Another option to get a match for the current source sentence is to assemble results from different resources, such as the translation memory, the term base, and, optionally, machine translation engines. The Concordance feature makes translation memory technology a valuable support instrument for the translation of those texts that, in contrast with revisions or updates, do not contain a large number of repeated segments, but have many units at sub-sentence level, such as clauses or phrases, in common with previous translations. For some concordances, search functions are restricted to the source language, while others allow for search criteria to be entered for both the source and target languages. Usually, concordances also use fuzzy matching techniques. Users can adjust the maximum number of hits displayed and the fuzzy match threshold, i.e. the minimum degree of similarity between search string and match, below which the match will not be displayed. An automatic concordancing feature bridges the gap between automatic sentence lookup and manual concordance search. Automatic concordancing can be triggered if no exact or fuzzy match is found in the translation memory. The feature looks for the longest possible match between the source text segment to be translated and the segments in the translation memory, and retrieves all occurrences from the database. The translator works their way through each of the segments in the bilingual file, inserting matches from the memory, translating no-match segments, and sending their translations to the memory and placing placeables and tags correctly until they reach the end of the document. Some standalone CAT tools allow the project manager to specify that the QA checks must be completed on the document before returning the translated file. This compels the translator to check that tags and terminology have been used correctly, as well as checking for minor errors and inaccuracies relating to grammar, spelling, punctuation, and formatting issues. More will be said about automated QA checks and common errors and inaccuracies in the next unit. Once the QA checks have been completed, the translated bilingual file is saved and returned to the project manager according to the instructions provided. Text inside images can pose certain challenges for localization. For the localization process, it is generally better to use text and images separately, or to provide the translator or agent with the image in its native file format if the full localization service is required. For the purposes of localization, text inside images which has been saved in a universal file format, such as JPEG or PNG, is not ideal, as the text cannot be extracted from these file formats by a CAT tool. It is possible to extract the text from such image files using OCR or optimal character recognition, and to compile the extracted or manually transcribed text in a Word document or rich text file, which can then be imported into the CAT tool. Localizing the image is a three-part process, which requires different professionals at different stages. The text inside the image must first be transcribed, and this might be done by the project manager. The text is then translated by the translator, and the translation needs to be inserted into a copy of the original file, and this might be done by a graphic designer. When an image with text is created in a program such as Photoshop, the image is made up of separate layers which are then compressed together by exporting the image to the PNG or JPEG file formats, amongst others. However, in order to be able to replace any text in images with its translation, the image needs to be separated out into its original layers using an image editing program so that the text layer can be accessed. For this task, it's necessary to deal with the native file format images as created in the image editing program, for example, the PSD, the PSB, or the TIFF files from Photoshop. If a client provides you with a PNG or JPEG file, you should always check the client's preference on how to handle this. The options would be that the translator provides a transcription of the text in the image and a corresponding translation, or translations if it's an advertising or marketing text, and the client's graphic designers handle the process of copying the translation into the new version of an image. Alternatively, the client provides the native file format, and the agency or translator would need to have access to an image manipulation program, so that they can perform the substitution themselves. Many CAT tools are unable to support the universal image file formats. However, some standalone tools offer some support for Photoshop files, such as PSB, PSD or TIFF, allowing these to be imported into the CAT tool and included among the other project files for translation. MemoQ will allow universal image files to be imported and opened for transcription and translation. However, the program does not replace the text in the image file itself. It simply creates a processed file which can be included within a project and sent to a translator who will overwrite the text with its translation. This allows the transcription and the translation to be stored as a translation memory unit. The project manager can then export the translated XLIFF to a bilingual rich text file so that it can be passed to the in-house graphic designer for substitution during the desktop publishing stage. Or the image file and the bilingual RTF containing the translation can be returned to the client for them to arrange their own graphic designer. This concludes our Unit 8 presentation on project execution. In Unit 9, we will consider the QA and testing stage of the project, which includes performing revision and review inside and outside of the CAT tool environment. You should now continue with your exploration of the 3 suggested CAT tools, using the guided exploration questions and the help files and resource list provided, before moving on to complete the end of unit quiz. Please click Next to return to the Moodle course page. This concludes our Unit 8 presentation on project execution. In Unit 9, we will consider the QA and testing stage of the project, which includes performing revision and review inside and outside of the CAT tool environment. You should now continue with your exploration of the 3 suggested CAT tools, using the guided exploration questions and the help files and resource list provided, before moving on to complete the end of unit quiz. Please click Next to return to the Moodle course page.